Ant-Man and the Wasp is directed by Peyton Reed, and this is the 20th installment into the Marvel Cinematic Universe. This film once again follows Scott Lang, who, after assisting Captain America during the events of Civil War, is placed on house arrest. It is here when he is approached by Hope Van Dyne as well as Hank Pym, who require Scott's assistance in order to locate Janet Van Dyne, who has been hidden for decades in the quantum realm. In my opinion, the fact that 2015's Ant-Man is as good as it is an absolute miracle. After director Edgar Wright left the film very late in production, which they had to bring on Peyton Reed to finish the film, but the fact that that movie is as good as it is pretty remarkable. But still, looking back, I think that there are a lot of elements of that film that are reminiscent of Edgar Wright's directorial style, and as a result, when I rewatched that movie, I find myself wondering what components of that film were Peyton Reed's and what were Edgar Wright's. And leading up to this movie, I was looking forward to seeing how Peyton Reed would handle this character from the get-go, not having to kind of clean up a mess that was left by another director. And for the most part, I had fun with this movie. This is an enjoyable film with some great moments, but unfortunately, I think it has a lot of shortcomings that not only make it inferior to the first Ant-Man movie, but a vast majority of other films in the MCU. One of the constant highlights that remains from the previous film is Paul Rudd's portrayal of Scott Lang. Once again, he has proven to be really inspired casting, and especially if you're a fan of the Nick Spencer run of Ant-Man, he proves to be such a faithful and accurate adaptation of this character. And again, like the other Ant-Man film, this is a movie that relies heavily on its jokes, some of which land and some others not quite as much. I will say this though, and it is one of my bigger issues with this film, that if you watch this movie after watching the first Ant-Man, it doesn't really seem like Scott Lang is the same person. Scott in this film feels significantly more inept than he did in the first movie, and I would say for the most part, barring a few plot points, he is pretty insignificant in this movie, again, barring a few moments in this film. And I think it's clear to see that the character that the filmmakers really wanted to focus on was that of Hope Van Dyne, or Wasp, which is one of the improvements that this film makes on the first film, which is giving her a much more substantial role. I really enjoyed her in this movie. I thought her action scenes were very exciting. I really liked the dynamic that she had with her father, Hank. I will say though that a lot of the action scenes, especially towards the end of the film, center around retrieving this laboratory, and after a while it just felt a little repetitive, like, oh, we have the lab now, oh, now the bad guys have the lab, oh, we got the lab back, oh, they took it back again. And you have those moments interspersed through scenes where they're making objects either bigger or smaller. And I would say that I think they do really as much as you can do with making things either bigger or smaller. But I do feel like they painted themselves into a corner a bit, because so much of the finale is this one big car chase. And again, there's only so much that you can do in terms of creativity with making things bigger or smaller. And again, I just felt like there were a lot of beats in these action scenes that just felt a little repetitive. Recently, Marvel has introduced some villains that I thought were drastic improvements on what has typically been some pretty subpar characters, with introductions like Thanos, Killmonger, Hela, and even Vulture. And with Ant-Man and the Wasp, they decided to take a villain who is actually from Iron Man's rogues gallery with Ghost, who in the comics is really one of the more insignificant antagonists in the Marvel universe. So going into this movie, I really didn't have that high expectations of this character, not something that I would have with a much more significant Marvel villain like Thanos or Ultron. And I'm glad that I didn't, because I really did not care for this character at all. I think the best thing about Ghost is the design of their suit. I thought with what they have to work with in terms of source material, I thought they did a really great job modernizing this costume for live action today. But our introduction to this character and the reason why they're doing what they're doing, I was thoroughly unimpressed with the execution. Because for starters, they literally sit down our characters and delve into this 3 to 4 minute synopsis of their backstory and why they're doing what they're doing. The exposition in the scene is delivered in an incredibly heavy-handed way, and I can think of about about 10 other ways that this information could have been delivered. I will say this though, I did enjoy the way that they portrayed Ghost's powers, and I do think that it is an inspired choice to pick a character who's not even in Ant-Man's rogues gallery and kind of bring them over. I thought they were a really nice fit with Ant-Man. I just didn't feel that the character was really all that compelling, and in the end was just fine. And looking back on this movie, I just felt like there were a lot of elements of this film that were just fine. For starters, I would like our heroes to really have a much more clearly defined arc than they do in this movie. Because when I think about this film and I think of where these characters were at the beginning of the movie to the end of the movie, not a lot has changed in terms of their character development. And I think when you look at the MCU as a whole, I think that the most successful of those films that are sequels are movies that change the characters and develop the characters. Movies like Thor Ragnarok and The Winter Soldier being great examples of that. But when I was watching this film, I just really didn't feel like these characters changed from beginning to end. And I think it's because of those reasons, along with a pretty subpar villain, the degraded depiction of Scott Lang, as well as the redundancies of a lot of the action scenes in this film, that make Ant-Man and the Wasp to be certainly a welcome inclusion into the MCU, but not necessarily a film that I can see myself wanting to rewatch multiple times like I do with a lot of other Marvel movies. As of right now, this is where Ant-Man and the Wasp ranks for myself among the other 19 Marvel movies thus far. And I am going to be continuing what I started with my Deadpool 2 review and giving some suggested comic book reading that if you enjoyed these characters, you might enjoy these books as well. If you enjoy the character of Ant-Man, I would check out Avengers number 223, as well as The Astonishing Ant-Man number 1 through 13, as well as Ant-Man Astonishing Origins. And if you enjoy the character of Wasp, make sure you check out Jeremy Whitley's The Unstoppable Wasp number 1 through 8, as well as Avengers number 71. But if you enjoy Ant-Man and the Wasp as a team, make sure you check out Tales to Astonish number 44, Avengers number 1, Mark Millar's The Ultimate issue 1 through 13, as well as Avengers Origin, Ant-Man and the Wasp number 1. And if you enjoyed the character of Ghost, make sure you check out their origin in Iron Man 219 through 221. So did you guys see Ant-Man and the Wasp? Where does it rank in the MCU for yourself? Leave your thoughts and opinions down below. And as always, guys, thank you so much for watching today. I hope you liked today's video, and if you did, you can click on the link down below and subscribe to my channel to see more movie reviews and movie related things. And guys, thank you so much for watching, and see you next time.